strive for. As a person, you have to have a strong team. I actually attribute some of my approach to the family I grew up in, to the way that my parents embraced being in community, with community. You know, I tell people, my students will say, well, how did you learn how to speak in public? I said, well, I started when I was about this tall, when somebody pushed me in the front of the church and said, read the announcements. And I was like, oh.
Sink or swim.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I had a lot of that. You know, I grew up around and in the presence of some of the most amazing women who were leading, maybe didn't have doctorates, you know, different places in life that just modeled what I adopted as my way of being able to cope or to balance. When I was growing up, my mother used to talk on the phone to her best friend every morning at about 6 o'clock or earlier for about 5 minutes or a little less. And I, as a young adolescent, would think, who is crazy enough to be talking to somebody at this time of the morning? Now, little did I know, you know, that's the only time she had. And that person gave her life, spirit, a little, you know, go get it, go have a good day, you know, whatever. Of course, now I talk to a whole random group of people at 6 o'clock in the morning. Because she taught me, my mother used to march in place for 30 minutes every morning.
Really?
Either marching around the house, she's marching the whole time. She didn't have the resources for a gym, neither nor time to go to the gym. That was her way of taking care of her physical health, right? So I guess there's all kinds of threads, you know, there's all these things. I was recently at a new president's training, and we had to get up and tell a little bit about ourselves. And I said, well, everybody in here has read each other's bios and CVs and that kind of thing. I said, I have 3 stories that have anything to do with me and where I am right now as a leader and what I believe in. Many of you, if you visit my office, there is a cotton stalk in my office window. And all my sisters, we keep one in a very nice vase. And because when I was younger, my grandmother that had a 2nd grade education, I would be complaining about something. I have no idea what, something. And she would look at me and she'd say, Nisa, you didn't pick any cotton today. You want to talk about shutting somebody up.
Really? Because
she was speaking from her own perspective. And so she's like, you're all right. You're all right. So I have some pretty bad days, but my stock is in the pretty vase. And I remember her voice and I'm like, okay, all right, I got it. The second story of perseverance and focus, which has to do with my dad. When I was probably about 10, the guidance counselor, I was going to middle school, guidance counselor told my dad, I think you really need to think about another alternative for her. She's not going to ever go to college. And my dad, who's a very stern, larger than life person, immediately stood up and said, oh, thank you so much for your time. And he said, Nisa, and he said it in that voice like, we're going. I said, oh, we're going? Okay, we're going. And when we were leaving, he said to her, I'm so sorry you don't know who she is or who she belongs to or what we see for her, but we appreciate your time. We won't trouble you anymore. So the day that I got my doctorate, my dad, you know, we have a big family. We travel in this big group anywhere. And I kept looking like where my family was for everybody. Is everybody got a seat? Everybody okay? I'm in line. I'm going to go across the stage. Is everybody got the camera ready? It's time. We're going. And I get up to the stage and I'm walking across and I look under this oak tree and he's standing there all by himself. Oh. And when I get down on the other side, he comes over and gives me a hug and a kiss. So what are you doing over here? And he says, listen, there was nobody with me that day that lady told you that you weren't going to school. And I didn't need anybody with me when I watched you do what you just did. You know, and so education transforms lives. It is my life's work.